So digital marketing it touches a lot of different things. It can go from analytics to social media. What do you think are what are some of the biggest major subtopics within digital marketing?
If I had to really think about it, you hear quite a bit about privacy. That's a big deal. But I think even before that, I think one of the things that we can get into is social issues to some degree. Let me explain what I mean by that. Last year, the Journal's Pizza got into a little bit of hot water over the hashtag Why I Stay. And I don't know how many have heard that hashtag before. Okay. It was associated with women that were speaking out about abusive relationships, and the Journal jumped in basically without thinking, and they quickly apologized, which was great. It was the right thing to do. But the reason I highlight that is that we're probably going to see more and more where there's going to be a lot of questions on how do we, as a company, how do we manage our message, and that's really going to be a big impact on marketing. A lot of times I get small business clients who sometimes they struggle quite a bit with just getting a consistent message out there. I had a couple of clients that were very, very afraid of just getting reviews on Yelp. But the thing you have to, as a marketer, you have to, first of all, you have to tell the clients, wake up, it's here, it's digital, it's not going away. But at the same time, you have to also help that client, how do we manage our message, how do we manage the issues that we do face, and that we do, so that way we're not making the mistakes like in the Journal. And I mentioned this also in terms of, mentioned about the social issues, and started off talking about privacy just a little bit. The reason why I also mentioned about social issues and privacy is because, again, privacy with analytics, one of the concerns is that, analytics starts as a silo in a very isolated space. You can have analytics tags on a website, and you're not really invading someone's privacy. But in the last few years, thanks to JavaScript, thanks to a number of developments with web developers and in terms of programming, there are now more and more ways of adding a tag, which means as a marketer you have to be more sensitive about making sure you're not becoming intrusive with a media message. We're kind of at that point now. Joe talked a little bit about this. It's kind of hard to think that we're at these baby steps, but in terms of strategy, we have to think about what steps we're taking and what they can possibly lead to. A really good example was with Target. I think some of you may have heard about this. Target had sent ads to a home of a loyal customer, and it was for baby products. And the customer was very, very upset and came to one of the Target stores and complained to the manager and didn't realize that his daughter was pregnant. That was part of it, and based off of a shopping pattern that had been established. Because of the shopping pattern was established, Target that we'll go ahead and issue these coupons out and everything else. And I can't remember what it was that was a trigger point for the Target to come in, but my point is, these sort of things will happen, and as marketers we have to be a little bit more savvy and a little bit more aware of how just pay attention to how people use products, how they consume media, and what they may be doing. And I think if you're thinking about trying to enter into marketing, paying attention to people and how they're behaving is probably the best way of understanding not only social issues but what might be private issues as well too that you can run into.
I guess talking about big buckets for digital marketing that I kind of have experience with, and it also depends on the type of business that you work for. So if you work for like a news outlet, let's use like BuzzFeed as an example, they're always like pumping out content. So content is like their driving force in terms of digital marketing, along with social media. So they're very active on social media. So content and social media are two big components of that business model. Drilling down a bit further within BuzzFeed, taking it back to kind of copywriting, you have to be pretty witty and clever to come up with those, what's called like tag bait headlines. The 7 quickest ways to find, a 5-star girlfriend. Like, people are writing these things for a reason, to make you click on them, read their articles, spend time on their site. If you're an e-commerce business, maybe you specialize in like cupcakes or something, and you want to learn search engine marketing, so buying paid advertising. You can specialize in paid advertising, and that could be your biggest kind of acquisition channel as a digital marketing strategy. If you were maybe like a software as a service company, so like an analytics platform or like a Zendesk or any other kind of software. Maybe you want to acquire somebody's email address and then hit them up with different value props in an email marketing campaign. So email would be a big driver of your business there. So kind of depending on what business model you have, what online business model you have, you're going to have different kind of strengths and weaknesses. And you're going to put more emphasis on an email marketing strategy or a paid acquisition strategy or maybe all social. So it kind of depends on what business you have.
Perfect. And I'm glad that you hit on a lot of the different channels, because that was definitely the next question I was going to ask. Within the digital market, there's so many different subjects and channels. What are some of the pros and cons that you see within certain channels, I guess, or what would be like one that you see you have the most trouble with, and the ones that you have like the best, most like results with deliverables that you have with, success that you have with?
Okay. I'm trying to think how to do that in 140 characters. Still talking turtle lines. I think pros and cons. I'll share this a little bit. In terms of channels, social media, I touched a little bit about how easy it is to bump into other issues online in terms of how you communicate. But much of it is in terms of, I think the success you have is in terms of being on a particular channel and how well you manage it. For Zimana, for example, Twitter is probably the heaviest hitter still. For Zimana, it's all 3,500 followers as of today. And there's not quite, there's an Instagram, but not quite an Instagram presence that's pretty solid. But that's okay. It's kind of hard to take pictures of graphs and get people interested in that. So Twitter seems to be very effective in terms of getting out content, attracting customers. Email, I can't tell you how many articles I read that calls the death of email, but at the same time, right now, there's studies now that are showing that email is a gateway to mobile. A lot of people are opening up their emails on a smart device, on a tablet, so the one thing I would tell you is don't feel that, if you see someone writing an article saying the death of Vine, in fact, actually, somebody did write an article about not the death of Vine, but it's Vine on the on the downslope because of Meerkat now. How many of you have ever heard of Meerkat? Okay. Meerkat is a streaming video app. Basically what you can do is if you have an iPhone, you can open the app and literally stream a video of you walking around an event. It was very big. If you look up South by Southwest, it was very, very big. And I think it's already gotten some investment already. And the other reason why it's a big deal is because it's competing against Periscope, which was bought by Twitter. It was Periscope. It's also a comparable app as well. So you always hear about new apps, new ways people are behaving, but the best advice I can give you is don't feel that, pro fast, yes, keep up and be aware, but don't feel like you have to throw out your media or channel just because something new came along. That's not always the case. Like I mentioned, email is one example with mobile. Right now Google's making a big push about emphasizing mobile friendliness for websites. April 21st is the date that the new algorithm is going to come into play. But there's other platforms, social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, where people are basically accessing that social media through a smart device. So that can be a back-end way of connecting to a mobile audience. I mentioned about email. YouTube, I think, is still undervalued as a really good platform in terms of there's a lot of people that are leveraging that much more. It's not only technically the second largest search engine, but I think in the last financial report, Google reported that YouTube had I think about 60%, I think people ask 60% of its traffic is mobile. So, but YouTube can be a great avenue if you have a type of topic where there's education that has to be applied to your product or service. I think the pro is picking a medium and really making it a part and letting people know that this is a medium that your company uses or that you choose to use. The con might be in terms of scale. My job as analytics isn't just doing the data, it's also coming up with recommendations. I work with smaller organizations that can have a lot of data but not a lot of staff. And so the challenge becomes, how do you pick certain channels and decide to say, okay, maybe this is not quite the channel. And usually for me, when I've worked with clients, it's always been about, what is it I think that they're capable of doing. The last thing I want to do is walk in and say, hey, use YouTube, and then I know they don't have a camera, the video aids or educational video. So one of the things as a marketer I think that you should develop, I mentioned a little bit before about paying attention to people, definitely pay attention to client capability. What is it that your clients are capable of, or what they can increment to that would be easier. If you have a client that has, I'll give you one quick example, then I'm going to shut up. One of my earliest small business clients, a gentleman that had a really great recording studio, had all these snippets of music and a few images. And so what we did was we put together a montage for him to have a presence not only in YouTube, but also to have some sort of videos that he can have for advertising on his website as well too. So, the idea is, the con is that there's a lot of great, pro is that there's a lot of great channels. You can pick a couple of channels and really leverage it. The con is make sure that you want to pick some things that will scale easily. And that will be a challenge. I mean, you won't get it always right, you won't get it always perfect, but that will be a challenge.
Did you have anything to add on to that?
I guess I can try to go quickly through the kind of the big channels that I have used in the past and kind of give my quick pros and cons. So off the bat, so Google AdWords. Is everyone familiar with Google AdWords or understand what I'm talking about when I say that? Cool. So Google AdWords is great because it's highly analytical, so you can track everything. You can track how much it costs for people to click on your ad, how much it costs for people to see it, and how much it costs to actually get someone to buy your product. So that's great because you can understand your return on investment instantly down to the cent. The con is you have to pay for it. So if you're a startup or a small business and you don't have a lot of kind of money in marketing dollars, it's probably not the best option for you. Content marketing is great because it's free, essentially. It just takes your time to produce a piece of content. The con there would be it might take you some time to actually rank on Google, especially if you're going up against kind of big heavy hitters. Social, again, it's a free channel. Con would be it's tough to, in my experience, it's been tough to convert social media followers to actual users or customers. So social media is a great tool for starting a conversation, doing customer support on Twitter, sharing your company culture. But if you actually want to acquire a user and get them, to actually buy your product or use your service, social media maybe isn't the best platform for that. I'll talk about one more, and that's email marketing. So email, I'm a huge fan of, and I agree with Pierre's assessment in that it's not that at all, and it's only going to grow and get more effective for marketers. And the pro there is hopefully they've already used your product or signed up for it, so they're interested in your product, so you're not being annoying and kind of poking them every second. If you email them and they didn't sign up for your list, or you buy a list and email them, which is illegal, don't do that. You're not going to have a lot of success. So you can write a curated piece of content. You can make it look nice. You're delivering somebody valuable information to their inbox. A place where people are used to receiving content. You're not disrupting their day. You're right in the palm of their hand, literally. The con there would be maybe bandwidth for your team or technical skills, or maybe the know-how of actually running an email marketing campaign. And also timeliness. if you run, a bakery or a fashion line, and you email somebody at 5 in the morning or 10 in the morning, maybe they're not thinking about, eating a cupcake or buying a piece of, buying a t-shirt at that time. So that can kind of hinder your conversion, your click-through rates. So that would be kind of in that case. But, those kind of some big platforms and overview of kind of pros and cons of each. Does anybody specifically want us to know more about a specific platform that we haven't talked about?